Hello again and welcome back to my craft room. This is video number 2 in my Blessings of Home, or I think as I advertised it, Heart and Home bundle um, class for March 2022. I'm going to making this card here today. This time, this is card number 2. Cute little fresh freesia card. Um, Slightly different for the video. I'll come nice and close. You can see with this little image here, I've used quite subtle colours. I've actually stamped it in fresh freesia ink and coloured it in some very pale colours. Just thinking for the sake of this video, you might find it a little bit difficult to watch what I'm doing if I do the same thing for the video. So I'm going to actually use the darker black stamped image and the darker colours of the darker versions of the blends to do the colouring. But if you want that same sort of soft look that I've got on this particular card, as I say, stamp it in the fresh freesia or sort of a grey, sort of like a grey granite or smoky slate, and use the really soft colours for the decorating. That makes it sort of like a lot more pastel. But as I say, just so that you can see the video, I've stamped it quite dark in the black, and I'll use the darker versions of the various colours as well. So yeah, there's your choice. You can go bold or you can go sort of pale and soft and pretty. So anyway, as I say, I've already stamped and die cut that image there. So if you watch the first video in this class, you'll see how I've stamped that using the blank die cuts that you would have if you bought the stamp set version of this class. The rest of what we have will be in your kit. Be very careful because there'll be little embellishments there that might fall out. So you've got a fresh freesia card base, standard size card base, 8¼ by 5¾ quarters. You've got a panel of Whisper Basic White to go inside. I have to trim that one up. My card base is quite lopsided, so I'm going to trim that off so it's even. Sometimes the trimmer, the cards themselves aren't quite, what's the word, aren't quite 8¼ so there's sometimes a little bit of overlap, but I'll just take that off with my trimmer. In fact, this is right. Yep, that's it. Just look too big, that's all. So just let me trim that edge off before I start, because otherwise I'm not going to know which part is the front and which part is the back. There we are. Yep, that's even now. Apologies for that. I only just noticed that when I picked up the card base then. But anyway, so that's a nice even card base now. So I end up with a 4 1/8 by 5¾ card base. Okay, and as I say, a little panel of Whisper Basic White for the inside, which fits a lot better now. Okay, so I'm going to pop that in first just to get it out of the way and so I don't forget it. We can come back and stamp that with a sentiment shortly. Here we are. Okay, so the front of our card. So what also you've got in your kit is a strip of a fresh freesia floral designer series paper, and another one with the wood paneling. So you might have, there might be various panels, patterns you've got on the back of this wood panel one, but we're going to actually use in the wood panel side. So you're actually looking for the freesia side, the floral freesia side for the front, and then the wood panel one is what's going to complement it on the other side. So I'll just bring the original card in. You can see you've got the fresh freesia floral one there and the wood paneling on the other side. So I'll flip them around. Obviously I've got them the wrong way. So you're going to pop both of those and they're going to, because together they add up to 4 inches wide, they're going to butt up to each other just exactly in the middle, or at least they should. So pop the wood panel one on first, leaving a sort of a small edge, top, bottom and left hand side, so the same border. and then bring in your floral one. This is actually out of one of the Celebration papers, this one particularly, because I didn't have enough of the Heart and Home, so I've substituted, and it's a fine substitute. It's exactly the right colour, and yes, it's got the nice little white highlights as well. So butt them up together. Make sure you get the same border, left, right, top and bottom, and you've got that there. So that's the start of this one, that little sunbeams there. Okay, so we might pop that aside for the moment and bring in our little flower. So with the first video, I actually coloured with the Wink of Stella, which you could do. It's a lovely technique. You can continue it through all of the images on this in this class. But this one I'm actually I'm going to use blends. So I've got light and dark fresh freesia and light and dark soft succulent. So they're the two colours that I'm going to use. So I might, as I say, I'm going to do it in a darker colour so you can actually see what I'm doing for this particular one, and just colour. So obviously all the flowers are going to be fresh freesia, and all of the leaves are soft succulent. Not too much to have to worry about with this one. And I'm actually leaving, in the original one, because I was going for a real soft look, I've actually left the insides of the flowers white. Yeah, because I'm using the darker colours, I'm just going to come back in with the blend at the end. Of the larger flowers anyway, just to blend it in a little bit. So that was the dark one, and then we'll bring in the pale one and just soften that edge off a bit. But honestly, if you stick to sort of matching pinks or whatever, you could go whatever colour you like on the front of this one. There we are. So hopefully you get a chance to actually see it. It's not that pale. Again, I'm bringing in the darker of the soft saffrons to do the leaves, whereas I used much the what's the word? The paler one, the light one in the original. One of these larger ones, I'll bring it in to blend again. So that's the dark. And this is the light. And just on the stem as well. There we are. So as I say, I'm going to leave the centres white just to sort of give it a lightness to it. Okay, there. So that's the darker version, so you can see. and this is the pale version. So as I say, the only difference being that I've used all the light colours on the lighter version, and I've stamped it in the pale papaya, in the fresh freesia, or a grey, or something like that that doesn't have such a strong border. But anyway, as I say, totally up to you what you guys decide to do. You can go for the strong colours, but as I say, I've only done that so you can see it on the video. It tends to pale out a little bit if I go the other way. Okay, so also in your kit you have 2 tailored tags, which I also think are retiring. I'm not quite sure, I haven't checked that. So you've got one in vellum and you've got one in fresh freesia. So what we want to do is bring those 2 tags together and put them slightly so that their holes line up, but they themselves are sort of offline with each other. So you can see the fresh freesia one sort of poking out from behind, and that's this end here is where we're going to have our ribbon coming off the end. That's the gorgeous grape ribbon. So we can glue those 2 together so that they're in that sort of slightly overlap position. So we're going to bring our flower. I don't usually use glue when I use vellum, but we're going to bring our flower in over the top of that, so it doesn't really, you won't see any glue marks through that freesia, through that vellum, so that's fine. So we can stick the glue into that sort of area that's going to be covered over. Apologies with the little, what am I calling it? The little crease in this one. I cut it and it got creased in the machine. And I thought, well, I don't want to waste it. I'll use it for my demonstration version. And obviously, you guys won't have that crease in yours. There we are. So we just glued those together so that the holes line up and they're slightly off centre with each other. So you can see the fresh freesia sticking through behind there. So that's going to sit on, just checking whether it's just glued straight onto our card front like that. So sort of centre it as much as you like. Give it as much or as little sort of rotation as you feel comfortable with. Some people don't like too much rotation on their cards. They like things to be straight and lined up. So go as straight or as angled as you like. First of all, I'm going to bring in my ribbon before I glue anything down. That was that's bitter experience. I tried to put the ribbon in after I'd already glued it down on the original and it made it quite difficult. So pop your ribbon in now. So again, loop through the hole and then pass the loop back over the little ends and pull it firmly. Not too firmly, you don't want to rip your hole, but just firm enough to tighten it so it doesn't move. We'll trim that in a moment. I don't know how long I actually want it. Excuse me, I've got a very itchy nose at the moment. And we're going to bring that onto our card there. So I'm going to glue that down. I'm just going to put glue onto the back of the fresh freesia because that will be part of the vellum you can see. So we don't want glue on the back of the vellum. So just some glue on the back of the fresh freesia part of that. Line it up where you want it on your card and place it down. Oh, I've got to come over a bit because my vellum was overlapping. Maybe I've got the angle too tight. Let's just move it. Thankfully, our glue will let me have a little bit of a move. That's better. Okay, so there's our little tags on our card. Now all you need to do is bring your little flower onto the card, just popping it sort of onto the, sort of overlaps both of the tags, but just in any position that you like, as angled or as straight as you feel comfortable with. And we're going to pop this one on dimensionals. So I've got some mini dimensionals here. Just going to pop those around. More little plastic backs to add to the vacuum cleaner. And pop that one on there. So we do want to cover over the glue. As I say, you can see that glue through. As long as you cover it over with your image, there's no great problem there. So that's our little flower on the top of our 2 tags. Okay, so we nearly finished this one. It's so lovely and simple. You've got a wee strip of white cardstock, which is going to be for our sentiment. I've left it, probably most of you, it's quite long, basically because I used the scraps at the end of a card base. Sort of, you get a nice little strip left every time you cut a card base. So I'm going to use Have a Perfect Birthday. This is from the Blessings of Home stamp set. If you can use any other, if you're using a different stamp set, obviously choose your sentiment differently. I'm going to pop that on there and then trim it down to the right length. I'm just going to grab my scissors and trim that down. You don't want too much off the edge. There we are. We're going to bring that back in. And that's just going to sit straight, if I can work out what straight is on this card, over the very bottom of the stem of the flower, just like that. So what you'll need is a dimensional at either end. You won't want one in the middle because then it'll, or too close to the middle, because it'll, you'll get dimensional build-up. Could probably pop a wee bit of glue on that just in the centre there, just to brace it to the stem of the flower, but it should sit okay. And I'll try and make it central, and I'll try and make it straight. Just like that. There we are. So that's really sweet as well. Lovely, just lovely, you know, feminine little birthday card there. Well, last thing for this one is our bling. So you should have 3 iridescent gems, which I'm pleased to say are actually continuing in the next catalogue. So they will become a staple. They already have. I use them a lot. Just 3 various sizes, and just pop those around the card. There we are. Very cute. You might want to trim your ribbon a wee bit. I quite like it long actually, but it wouldn't fit into an envelope that way or easily. So I'm just going to trim it to a more close in length. There we are. Both the same would be good, Julianne. Just trim that back down a bit. That's better. Okay, so there we are. That's card number 2. As I say, that one's nice and bold, and so you guys can see the technique there. Not that there's much technique, you just colour it with blends. Or as I say, you could use your Wink of Stella again if you like. I'm just trying to get away from that light beam. And then there's the paler version from the original. So as I say, lighter blends and stamp it off on with a grey or a fresh freesia or a Highland Heather ink, just to soften it a bit. So it's entirely up to you which way you decide to go. It's your card. I actually quite like the bold one. I think it's quite, yeah, it sort of stands out a little bit more, as I suppose bold would. But anyway, there you go. There's our 2 cards. So that's card number 2. Nice, quick and easy one, that. Less than 20 minutes. That's really good. Okay, I'll tidy up and I'll be back with card number 3.